For years, I thought poverty was my destiny. But then something changed, not my circumstances, my mind, and when my thoughts changed, my life followed. Today, I want to share with you the 10 simple mindset shifts that took me from being poor in every way to being rich in more ways than I ever dreamed. This is Earl Nightingale, and today I want to talk with you about a truth that has transformed countless lives, including my own. The truth is this: we become rich in proportion to the richness of our thinking. When I was poor, I believed my life was limited by circumstances. I thought wealth belonged only to the fortunate few. But as I studied, as I listened, as I observed, I discovered something remarkable. Those who prosper do not think as the poor do. They train their minds to see abundance where others see lack. They act with discipline where others wait for luck. They choose to believe in possibility where others surrender to doubt. The first shift was responsibility. The poor man waits for rescue. The rich man builds his ladder. I stopped blaming and I started building. The second shift was clarity. I wrote down exactly what I wanted from life. A ship without a destination drifts endlessly at sea. Once I set my course, life's winds began to work in my favor. The third was how I valued time. I realized that an hour wasted today was a fortune buried tomorrow. Wealthy thinking treats every day as a precious investment. The fourth was expectation. I expected more of myself. Not in arrogance, but in vision. For a man can never rise higher than the picture he paints of himself in his own mind. The fifth was growth. Comfort is the enemy of progress, so I chose discomfort. I read more, learned more, and stretched further than I thought I could. And each time I did, life expanded to meet me. The sixth was focus. Instead of scattering my efforts, I fixed my attention on one worthy goal, and I pursued it until it became reality. The seventh was understanding value. Money is not the cause of wealth, it is the effect. When I learned to create value for others, money became the natural reward. The eighth was consistency. Not dramatic burst, but steady daily effort. Over time, small, consistent actions compound into great success. The ninth was association. I began to surround myself with people who lifted my thinking, who believed in growth, who saw life as opportunity. And finally, the 10th shift was choice. Poverty, I realized, was not my fate. It was my decision, and so, too, was wealth. The moment I chose abundance, my actions aligned, and the world responded. And here, friends, is the central truth to remember. We do not get what we want. We get what we think about, consistently and intensely. And so today I leave you with a call to action. Look at your own mind. Which thoughts have kept you poor? Which beliefs have chained you to limitation? Change them today. Write down what you want. Guard your hours. Raise your expectations. Begin right now to think richly. Because if you do, you will find, as I did, that life will deliver not pennies but treasure, not scarcity but abundance. Wealth begins in the mind long before it shows in the bank. The seed of prosperity is planted in thought, and only later does it bear fruit in material form. A person who has not yet learned to think richly may come into money by chance, but it will soon slip away, for their habits, beliefs, and self-image will not allow them to hold on to it. The mind is the soil, and if the soil is poor, no matter how many seeds of opportunity are scattered, they will not grow. The man who begins with a rich mindset, however, can start with nothing and still create abundance, because his thoughts direct his actions, and his actions create the conditions that attract success. When I say wealth begins in the mind, I mean that every step toward financial independence or personal achievement starts first with a picture of possibility. The individual who sees only limitations can never build wealth, for he is already defeated before he begins. But the one who chooses to see opportunity, to believe that he can learn, grow, and contribute something valuable, has already taken the first step toward riches. The mind shapes expectations, and expectations shape effort. A person who expects little from life gives little of themselves, and life returns the same in kind. But the person who expects much, who sets high standards and imagines a future greater than the present, inevitably finds themselves acting with a purpose and discipline that others lack. The wealthy thinker is different in how he treats time. He understands that each hour is capital, just as real as the dollars in his pocket. He invests his hours in learning and creating, in building relationships and developing skills. The poor thinker spends time as though it were endless, as though tomorrow will always offer another chance. But tomorrow comes quickly, and only those who sowed wisely yesterday reap the harvest today. Wealth in the bank begins with wealth in the schedule, and wealth in the schedule begins with wealth in the mind. Consider how opportunities reveal themselves. To the average man, they are invisible, hidden in plain sight. But to the man with a wealthy mindset, opportunities are everywhere, because he has trained his mind to look for them. He listens differently, asks better questions, and sees potential where others see dead ends. His thoughts direct his vision, and his vision directs his path. Most importantly, wealth in the mind is not only about money. It is about abundance, confidence, and growth. A wealthy thinker believes that resources can be created, knowledge can be gained, and value can always be added. This belief system allows him to remain steady even in the face of setbacks, for he knows that true wealth is not lost when money is lost, but only when belief is abandoned. A man who is rich in thought can start again as many times as necessary, because the source of his wealth is not external. It is within. Success follows clarity, not confusion. The man who knows exactly what he wants is like a sailor with a map and compass, able to steer his vessel toward a definite port, no matter how strong the winds or restless the tides. The one who drifts without a chart is carried wherever the current happens to go, and when he reaches the shore, he finds it is not the destination he desired, but merely the result of chance. Clarity gives direction, and direction gives power. A confused mind hesitates, starts and stops, changes course without reason, and squanders energy chasing distractions. But a clear mind moves steadily, knowing that even imperfect steps taken with focus lead farther than scattered leaps made without aim. When a man defines his purpose, he begins to measure every action against that standard. He asks, does this bring me closer to my goal or farther from it? Clarity filters decisions, saving him from wasting time and energy on pursuits that do not matter. With clarity, ordinary hours become extraordinary investments. Confusion, on the other hand, multiplies delays, breeds doubt, and leaves even the talented man empty-handed. Many people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack a clear picture of where they want their ability to take them. Clarity sharpens effort and creates momentum. It gives the mind a target to concentrate upon, and the subconscious begins working in harmony with conscious intention. This is why those who write down their goals, who visualize their destination, and who repeat it daily, often seem to attract opportunities with ease. They are not lucky, they are clear. Confusion clouds vision, but clarity cuts through the fog and lights the path toward success. The poor blame, the rich take responsibility. When a man blames others for his circumstances, he hands over his power. He convinces himself that life is unfair, that others are holding him back, that fate has dealt him a losing hand. In doing so, he frees himself from the burden of change, for if others are responsible, then he need not act. Yet this very act of blaming ensures he remains exactly where he is. A man cannot rise while his thoughts are chained to excuses. He cannot build when he spends his strength pointing at others. Responsibility, on the other hand, is the foundation of growth. The rich, whether in money, wisdom, or character, accept that their results are the fruit of their own decisions. They may not control every circumstance, but they control their response, their effort, their choices, and their habits. When the poor thinker meets failure, he blames the market, the government, the competition, or even luck itself. He finds endless reasons why success could not have been his. The rich thinker meets the same failure, but he asks, what could I have done differently? What lesson is hidden here? What must I change in myself? This attitude transforms setbacks into stepping stones. By taking responsibility, he gathers wisdom from each misstep and becomes better equipped for the next opportunity. The poor thinker avoids responsibility as though it were a burden, but in truth it is the doorway to freedom, because only the responsible man holds the keys to his own future. Responsibility also shapes character. The man who blames grows bitter, for he sees himself as a victim. The man who accepts responsibility grows stronger, for he sees himself as the author of his story. This inner strength attracts trust, respect, and opportunity. Employers, partners, and investors are drawn to those who take ownership, for they know such men can be relied upon. In contrast, no one wants to entrust much to one who constantly shifts blame, for he will abandon responsibility when it matters most. Taking responsibility is not about fault, it is about control. A storm may strike without warning, but how one prepares, reacts, and rebuilds is a matter of choice. The rich thinker does not waste energy cursing the storm. He focuses on what can be done to protect and recover. By assuming responsibility, he directs his energy toward solutions instead of complaints. Over time, this habit compounds into mastery. The poor thinker remains reactive, always at the mercy of circumstances, while the rich thinker becomes proactive, shaping circumstances to his advantage. The divide between blame and responsibility is the divide between stagnation and growth. One leads to excuses, the other to progress. One locks the door, the other opens it. Those who remain poor in mind cling to blame as comfort, but those who seek richness embrace responsibility as the first law of advancement. Time is wealth. Use it wisely or lose it. Unlike money, time cannot be earned back once it is spent. Every tick of the clock is a silent withdrawal from the account of life, and no man knows the balance he holds. The wealthy thinker understands this truth deeply, and so he treats each day, each hour, as an investment. He asks himself whether his time is being directed toward building, creating, learning, and strengthening, or whether it is being scattered on trivial distractions that return nothing. The poor thinker believes he has endless tomorrows, and so he wastes today. But tomorrow comes quickly, and those who neglect the minutes find they have lost the years. Time, like money, demands a budget. The man who spends without thought will soon be empty, while the man who plans each expenditure gains power. The rich know that how one uses the morning sets the tone for the day, and how one uses the day sets the direction for life. They guard their hours as treasures, giving them only to pursuits that align with their vision. The poor trade their time cheaply, surrendering it to idle entertainment, meaningless conversations, and endless delay. Yet when asked why they have not achieved their desires, they complain that life has not given them enough time. The truth is that time was always given in equal measure, but it was not used with equal wisdom. Consider the difference between spending time and investing it. To spend is to consume, to let the moment pass without return. To invest is to plant, to use the hour in such a way that it multiplies in the future. Reading, learning, building relationships, creating something of value, these are investments. Gossip, complaint, endless hesitation, these are expenses with no return. A man's future is written in how he chooses to use the hours before him, for the sum of days becomes the story of his life. Time also carries with it the law of compounding. A single wasted day may seem small, but wasted daily it grows into years of lost potential. Likewise, a single disciplined day may appear minor, but multiplied by hundreds it builds fortunes, reputations, and legacies. The wealthy thinker sees this and disciplines himself to repeat small productive habits, knowing they accumulate quietly into great results. The poor thinker waits for the perfect moment, squandering the present while hoping for a better future that never arrives. Every man is a time investor, whether he knows it or not. Each decision, each activity, is either building wealth or draining it. To use time wisely is to take control of one's destiny. To waste it is to forfeit that control. The clock continues to move, indifferent to excuses, blind to intentions, responsive only to action. The man who understands that time is wealth begins to live with urgency, not in panic, but in purpose. He wakes each morning aware that the hours ahead are his greatest asset, and he resolves not to lose them. Focus is the magnet of opportunity. The man who scatters his attention finds himself pulled in every direction, yet moving forward in none. He touches many things but masters nothing, and so opportunity passes him by. The one who focuses, however, creates a force of attraction. By fixing his mind on a single aim, he draws to himself the ideas, people, and circumstances that align with that goal. Focus sharpens vision, filters distraction, and turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. It is not that the focused man is given more chances than others, but rather that he recognizes and seizes them while others are too distracted to notice. When a man commits himself to a definite purpose, he begins to see patterns and connections that once were invisible. His mind becomes like a magnet, pulling in every fragment of knowledge and every resource that might advance his cause. The unfocused man, on the other hand, lets opportunity slip past his very eyes, for he is looking in too many directions to recognize it. Focus creates clarity, and clarity reveals the path forward. Without it, even the brightest mind will wander endlessly, collecting information but producing no result. Focus is also discipline. It requires saying no to 1,000 lesser things so that one great thing may be accomplished. The man who learns to eliminate distractions gains time, energy, and momentum. This is why focus often separates the successful from the unsuccessful more than intelligence or talent does. Talent without focus is wasted potential. Focus without extraordinary talent still builds achievement, because concentrated effort compounds steadily over time. A man may not be the most skilled, but if he directs himself fully toward one goal and persists, he will surpass the scattered genius who chases too many pursuits. Opportunity seeks those who are prepared, and focus is preparation in its purest form. The focused man trains himself daily, refining his skills, building his knowledge, and preparing for the moment when chance arrives. To the unfocused, opportunity looks like work, but to the focused, it looks like the next natural step. This is why success so often appears sudden to outsiders, when in truth it was the product of years of concentrated effort hidden beneath the surface. Focus gives power to time. An hour of scattered attention produces little, but an hour of undivided concentration can change the direction of a man's life. Just as the sun's rays, when scattered, warm gently, but when focused through a lens ignite fire, so too does the focused mind produce results that seem impossible to the distracted. The man who understands this principle begins to treat his focus as his greatest resource, guarding it, protecting it, and directing it toward the things that matter most. And as he does, opportunity seems to flow to him, not because the world has changed, but because he has learned to see and sees what was always there. You rise to the level of your expectations. A man never outgrows the image he holds of himself in his own mind. If he expects little, he prepares little, he tries little, and he receives little. But the one who expects much begins to act differently. His thoughts, his habits, and his standards all rise to meet the picture he has drawn of his future. Life responds to the level of faith we place in ourselves. No man has ever achieved greatness while secretly believing he was meant for mediocrity. Expectations set the ceiling of achievement, and most people live not according to their abilities, but according to the limits they set in their minds. When you raise your expectations, you demand more from yourself. You stop accepting excuses, and you start holding yourself accountable. The student who expects to pass may scrape by with minimal effort, but the one who expects to excel studies with a different energy. The worker who expects nothing more than a paycheck shows up to do the least required, while the one who expects advancement works with initiative and dedication. The difference between them is not opportunity but expectation, for expectation shapes behavior and behavior shapes results. The law is simple. You cannot consistently act in a manner that is out of harmony with the way you see yourself. If you expect poverty, you will make choices that ensure it. If you expect abundance, you will act in ways that bring it closer. Expectation is the invisible architect of destiny. It directs the words you speak, the risks you take, the resilience you show, and the persistence you maintain. Those who achieve extraordinary success are not necessarily more gifted, but they carry a higher image of what is possible for them, and they labor daily to live up to it. Rising to the level of expectation also requires courage, because it often means leaving behind the comfort of the familiar. To expect more is to step beyond the crowd, to set standards that others may mock or misunderstand. But history belongs to those who dared to expect more than what seemed realistic. The innovator, the builder, the leader, all were once ordinary people who raised their expectations above the common level and refused to lower them. Expectation is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The man who expects success prepares himself, notices opportunities, and refuses to quit when challenged. The man who expects failure shrinks from risk, overlooks openings, and accepts defeat before the battle has truly begun. In the quiet of the mind, destiny is being shaped by the standards we set. To lift those standards is to lift the whole of life. Growth demands discomfort, not convenience. The path of least resistance may feel safe, but it never leads to greatness. A seed must break its shell to become a tree, and in that breaking there is struggle. Muscles grow only when stretched and torn through effort, and in that strain there is pain. The mind expands only when challenged with ideas that unsettle, disturb, and force new ways of thinking. Discomfort is not the enemy of growth, it is its birthplace. Convenience, on the other hand, lulls a man into stillness. It whispers that he has done enough, that he can rest before the work is finished, that he need not stretch beyond what is easy. But nothing of value is ever created in such ease. The man who seeks comfort above all else becomes stagnant. His days look alike, his abilities decline, his spirit weakens. He hides from failure and therefore hides from success. The man who embraces discomfort, however, discovers a secret. What is painful today becomes strength tomorrow. Each challenge endured becomes a skill gained. Each obstacle overcome becomes a resource added to his character. The habit of leaning into discomfort builds resilience, and resilience becomes the foundation of achievement. Discomfort also reveals potential. No man knows the measure of his strength until it is tested. A challenge that at first seems unbearable becomes manageable with effort, and what was once impossible becomes ordinary through repetition. This is how leaders, thinkers, and builders are made, not by avoiding struggle but by embracing it. The furnace of discomfort shapes steel where comfort would only produce weakness. Convenience offers immediate pleasure but robs the future. Discomfort demands effort but pays dividends that last a lifetime. The student who chooses the hard study now enjoys the rewards of mastery later. The worker who takes on the difficult task gains the skill and recognition that open greater doors. The man who avoids discomfort may enjoy a moment of ease, but he will pay with regret. The one who embraces it pays with sweat but earns with freedom. Growth is always uncomfortable because it requires leaving behind what is known. It means confronting fears, learning new skills, and entering unfamiliar territory. Yet each step into discomfort expands the horizon of what is possible. What was once terrifying becomes manageable, and what was once unthinkable becomes natural. This process never ends, for the moment a man chooses convenience over growth, he begins to decline. Life is not designed to reward ease but to reward expansion, and expansion is born of struggle. Money is a byproduct of value, not the goal itself. When a man chases money for its own sake, it slips through his fingers like sand. He spends his days seeking shortcuts, tricks, and schemes, always hoping for quick gain without laying the foundation that sustains it. But those who understand the true nature of wealth know that money is merely the shadow of value. It follows wherever genuine contribution is made. The more value a man creates, the more money flows naturally into his life. This is why two men may work equally hard, yet one prospers and the other struggles. The difference lies not in the hours, but in the value those hours produce. Value is born from service, innovation, and the ability to solve problems. The farmer who grows food feeds a community, and in exchange he is rewarded. The teacher who enlightens minds shapes futures, and in return she is compensated. The inventor who creates a tool that saves time enriches lives, and the market responds by enriching him. Money is society's way of saying thank you for value given. When one understands this, the pursuit of wealth becomes less about accumulation and more about contribution. The man who asks, "How can I give more? How can I serve more? How can I improve what others already have?" soon discovers that money comes as a natural result. The poor thinker believes money is the goal, so he chases it directly. He chooses work he dislikes because it pays, but because his heart is absent, his contribution is small, and his growth is limited. The rich thinker pursues excellence in what he does, knowing that excellence itself creates value, and value attracts reward. This is why those who master their craft, who innovate in their field, and who dedicate themselves to quality rarely need to chase money. It finds them. When money is the sole objective, greed blinds judgment and leads to reckless choices. Businesses built only for profit cut corners, exploit trust, and eventually collapse under their own weight. But businesses built to deliver value endure, for people continue to support what benefits them. The same applies to individuals. A man who pursues money at the expense of integrity may rise quickly, but his fall is inevitable. The one who builds his wealth on value may rise more slowly, but his success is lasting, because it rests on a solid foundation. Money reveals its greatest power when it becomes a tool for extending value further. The wealth earned from serving others can then be reinvested to serve on a larger scale. In this way, value multiplies and so does wealth. The cycle continues, always beginning with contribution. Those who understand this principle free themselves from the endless chase, for they know that money is not the master but the servant, and it arrives faithfully wherever true value has been given. Consistency beats talent when talent quits. Talent is a spark, but consistency is the fuel that keeps the fire alive. Many men are gifted with natural ability, sharp intellect, or uncommon skill, but without the discipline to show up day after day, their gift fades into wasted potential. The world is filled with stories of talented individuals who began with promise yet ended in obscurity, because they lacked the persistence to continue when the journey became difficult. On the other hand, countless ordinary men and women, with no remarkable advantage at the start, have risen to greatness through steady, consistent effort. What they lacked in talent they made up for in discipline, and discipline over time always outlasts fleeting brilliance. Consistency is the silent builder of mastery. It transforms small efforts into great achievements. 1 hour of practice may mean little, but repeated daily it shapes expertise. A single act of discipline may seem insignificant, but repeated endlessly it forms character. Talent may dazzle in the beginning, but it is consistency that delivers results in the end. The man who writes a page each day will complete a book, while the talented writer, waiting for inspiration, produces nothing. The worker who improves by 1% daily surpasses the gifted one who works only when convenient. Consistency also builds trust. Others learn to rely on the one who shows up without fail, who delivers steadily, who is dependable regardless of circumstance. This reputation creates opportunities, for people are drawn to those who can be counted on. Talent may open a door, but consistency keeps it open. Employers, partners, and friends place their confidence in those who persist, for they know that challenges will arise, and when they do, persistence matters more than brilliance. The secret of consistency is not in grand gestures but in simple habits. It is the daily choice to do what must be done even when the mood is absent. Talent waits for inspiration, consistency creates it. Talent shines in moments, consistency endures for a lifetime. And when talent falters, as it often does in the face of struggle, consistency continues its steady march forward, quietly but surely outpacing what once seemed untouchable. Every success story rests on the shoulders of consistency. Behind every champion, every innovator, every leader is not only a flash of talent, but the long trail of daily discipline that sharpened that talent into something lasting. Consistency demands patience. But patience compounded over time creates miracles. It is the great equalizer, proving that even the most ordinary among us can achieve the extraordinary if only we refuse to quit. You don't become rich by chance. You become rich by choice. Wealth is not a lottery ticket handed out to the fortunate few, nor is it a random accident that falls upon one man and not another. It is the direct result of deliberate decisions, habits, and attitudes repeated over time. The man who drifts through life waiting for luck to rescue him remains anchored where he stands, while the man who decides to change his thinking, direct his actions, and discipline his behavior begins walking the road that leads to abundance. Chance is unpredictable, but choice is certain. Every choice shapes destiny, and the choice to pursue wealth begins long before money appears in the bank. A man becomes rich when he chooses responsibility over excuses. He stops blaming circumstances, background, or fate and begins to accept that his life is the product of his own decisions. He becomes rich when he chooses discipline over indulgence, directing his resources toward building and investing instead of squandering them on fleeting pleasures. He becomes rich when he chooses growth over stagnation, devoting time to learning, reading, and developing new skills rather than wasting his days on distractions that lead nowhere. These are not the results of chance but the deliberate outcomes of choice. Every wealthy man once stood at the same crossroads as those who remain poor. The difference was not opportunity alone, for opportunities exist all around, but in the decision to recognize them and act upon them. The poor thinker waits for the perfect conditions, while the rich thinker creates them through consistent action. The poor hopes for a miracle, the rich builds one through persistence. Chance may bring a single opportunity, but without the choice to seize it, it passes unused. Choice also determines expectations. The man who chooses to see himself as capable of wealth sets higher standards, and those standards govern his actions. He chooses to associate with people who lift him higher instead of those who hold him down. He chooses to use his time as capital, treating each hour as an investment. He chooses to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain. These are not accidents, nor are they lucky breaks. They are conscious decisions repeated until they become a way of life. Even when setbacks come, as they surely do, choice remains the dividing line. The one who blames chance will give up, while the one who chooses resilience will rise again. Wealth is not determined by the absence of failure, but by the choice to continue despite it. To choose wealth is to choose a vision of a better future, and to align daily action with that vision until it becomes reality. In this way, riches are never left to chance. They are the inevitable harvest of the seeds planted by deliberate choice. My friends, we have walked together through the 10 great shifts of thought, the very changes that turn poverty into prosperity, despair into hope, and limitation into freedom. Wealth begins in the mind long before it shows in the bank. Success follows clarity, not confusion. The poor blame while the rich take responsibility. Time is wealth, use it wisely, or lose it. Focus is the magnet of opportunity. You rise to the level of your expectations. Growth demands discomfort, not convenience. Money is a byproduct of value, not the goal itself. Consistency beats talent when talent quits. And you do not become rich by chance, you become rich by choice. These are not abstract ideas, they are practical laws as certain as gravity. They shape every life, whether one accepts them or not. The difference lies in who chooses to live by them. Poverty of thought creates poverty of circumstance. Richness of thought creates richness of life. The moment you decide to change the way you think, you have already changed the trajectory of your future. So the conclusion is simple and timeless. Riches are not outside of you, they are within. They are born in your mind, nurtured by your habits, and revealed through your choices. The man who changes his thinking changes his life, and the man who guards his thoughts as treasure will soon find treasure in every area of his life.